Hi everyone, Janelle here. I'm a functional nutritionist, doctor of natural medicine, and creator of the Empowered Midlife Method. This is my podcast where we talk about midlife wellness in the mountains. I am on a mission to help women not only feel better and age their best, but also to help women understand their unique body, to take ownership in their health, to awaken their hormone wisdom, and step into their power around growing older. Today, my guest is Brooke Davis. Brooke is an educator and midlife relationship advocate with more than 20 years of experience in healthcare administration. She brings a deep passion for psychology, research, and education to her work. Brooke helps couples understand the mental, emotional, and relational toll of midlife hormone shifts. She teaches people how perimenopause and andropause can reshape marriages, and how, with education, empathy, and a shared understanding, couples can evolve together. Brooke and I dig into how hormone changes in midlife impact our marriage, how it can expose cracks in our relationships, and what we can do to mindfully address these new challenges. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here, and welcome, Brooke. I'm so happy to have you. I have absolutely loved your work from the moment I found you because I am obsessed with this confluence of science and soul, and hormones are this unique place where it all comes together because they impact every single part of us. And when they shift in midlife, it rocks everything, including our relationships, which is your jam. That's what you do. But I have felt this struggle personally, and with my friends and professionally. So I am so grateful for your work. We all need it. It's so important. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Janelle. I'm really excited to chat with you today and kind of go over some things that I've been personally researching for quite some time, really kind of about 10 years now. And it really just kind of opened up this whole new world to me about thinking about how our hormones really impact our relationships. And I focus on maybe that closest relationship that we have, which is, typically our marriage or our life partner that we have. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Okay, so when did it dawn on you? You said you've been kind of doing this for 10 years. When did it dawn on you personally that something unique was going on with marriages and midlife that we need to learn more about?
So it really was not a lightning bolt moment for me. It was more kind of like a slow unraveling. Like in my late 30s, I started to have some of those classic perimenopause symptoms. I was having the emotionally, the physically, even the mentally one. And my marriage started feeling the impact of that. I didn't really see it all at first because I didn't really know what was going on with myself either. I'd always been that steady one in the relationship, the one that managed stress really well. I kind of kept everything together. And then suddenly I started feeling less patient. My moods were extremely unpredictable most days. And even the smallest, tiniest things would just set me off. And at first, I thought I was failing somehow, that I wasn't strong enough or I wasn't grateful enough or whatever it might be. But when I started talking to other women, my friends and some colleagues, and even some of my family members, I realized that they were describing the same things that were happening in their marriages too. And that's when it started hitting me that this wasn't just my personal struggle. It was part of a larger pattern where us as women are blindsided by perimenopause and marriages are silently absorbing the fallout from sometimes we don't know what's happening to us. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. You know how sometimes those things happen to you and you're like, wow, why are we not connecting the dots on this? And I knew couples really needed some tools, they needed some language, and they needed some awareness. So they don't mistake biology for broken love or emotional distance or whatever it might be that they're feeling because of the symptoms that they're experiencing with perimenopause. So that was kind of how I got to that journey and learning about that. I couldn't believe how many people I was talking to that were having these same struggles, but we weren't really talking about it out loud. So that's how I got there.
Yeah, for me too. I think anyone probably our age, that's what we're all talking about. If we are married or in a partnership, that everything is changing and oh my goodness, we're irritated. We just don't have the patience, everything you said. And I love the word you used, blindsided, because I think that is really what's happening in so many different realms. And we're not really talking about the marriage part of it much at all, which is why I'm so happy to have you. But blindsided exactly because we don't learn about our hormones. We don't learn how much they impact. We don't even consider the fact that they impact our relationships. So,
Oh,
blindsided is a perfect word. It all feels out of control because
yeah.
we don't get any part of it. Well, until hopefully now. But so, what is the problem? Do you have any statistics about marriage and midlife and how this goes down?
Yeah, actually. So there is the data that confirms what maybe a lot of us are feeling. So studies show about 60% of divorces involve couples between the ages of 40 and 49. That's huge. And what's even more striking is that divorce among people over 50, and sometimes you'll hear that called as like a gray divorce, has doubled since the 1990s. And women are the ones mostly initiating these split ups, and around 70% overall. That's a big number. And then it's up to 90% of women initiating these divorces among college educated women. And when you put those numbers alongside the timing of perimenopause and menopause, you start to see a much clearer picture. Midlife isn't just a season of change, it is definitely a pressure test for marriages. And the statistics tell us this isn't an isolated problem. It's definitely a cultural moment that we haven't fully named or prepared couples for. And that kind of goes back to the same blindsiding that we just kind of talked about. So, right there, that was staggering when I did some research not too long ago on that, because I know numbers change and we get new data. And this is information pretty much from the past about 4 or 5 years. And so it's really telling a story that we're seeing what's going on in this time frame of life. It's huge. It's a huge transition for women, and then which that means it's a huge transition for their relationship.
God, if those numbers are just staggering, aren't they? It's just wild. And
Right. Yeah.
and when you put them up, like you said, to the age, women 40s, 50s, but being a woman who's almost 50, it's not shocking.
No, it's not. It's not. And you kind of get to this conversation. A lot of people will say, well, why? Right? Okay, well, that's the statistics. Well, why?
Yeah,
Well,
what's going on?
ultimately, yeah. So, well, ultimately, what's kind of happening there in that situation is it's multi-layered, but we know on the biological side, it's the shifting hormones. We know what they do to us. They affect our mood regulation, our sleep, our energy, and how our brain processes stress. And those changes, of course, can make reactions feel bigger, patience shorter, and connection harder. But what it does also is it shows the cracks in the relationship, right? When we start having these hormonal shifts and everything, things come to light sometimes. Things that maybe we've carried and suppressed over time becomes very urgent. And things that we don't want to maybe say tolerate anymore. That doesn't just mean in our marriage. Maybe it means things like certain relationships beyond our marriage that we don't want to tolerate anymore, maybe our jobs. We don't want to do certain things in our personal lives anymore. And so that is what starts happening. It just really starts showing if you have cracks in your relationship, it's going to expose them. And I know we're going to get into some questions a little bit later on about that, but I know following up to why are so many people are getting divorced, it really gets to that point. It brings you to a head in that your relationship where either you're going to get really honest or maybe your relationship is not going to continue at that point in time. So I know it's multi-factored and multi-layered. So, but there's a lot of things that you can really dig into around that area, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And maybe some cracks are good sometimes, right? Maybe sometimes in midlife, things that need to shift, it pushes us to shift in the right direction.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
but I think a lot of your research and work is around that it doesn't always have to be that way, even if it feels like it right away. So if we get clear on what's happening
Yeah.
and maybe work on those cracks a little bit, have tools to work on that, then we can more clearly see if this relationship is worth it or not.
You really do. Honestly, it brings you to a point in your life. And it talks about when you think about this, you kind of think about the estrogen veil. You might have heard this terminology or something before. But what this kind of means is that we get to this point in our life when our hormones change. We don't have that capacity just to keep pushing through without support anymore. Like it's just not, there anymore. And when that veil lifts, it kind of comes a rush of truth with it. And this can be disorienting and empowering at the same time for some women. And some women feel grief as they confront unmet needs that they've had for years, or maybe even emotional compromise in their relationship. Others might feel anger at what maybe they felt like they've tolerated in their relationship. But there's many that have a new sense of urgency. And I fall in this area too. It's like a drive to make changes or to speak up or to redefine what you want from your next chapter of life. And the lifting of the estrogen veil doesn't mean the relationship is broken. I think that's what we want to necessarily point out. It just means that the woman's finally seeing herself clearly. And she's asking if this life is still who she is becoming. Is this what she still wants in life? It pulls back that curtain and it really forces couples to see what's really there in the relationship. And especially for long term couples, right? I mean, for people that have been in maybe 10 years or 15, 20, 25 years of marriage, ultimately, you kind of put things in little corners of your life. You don't address things when you're younger. You just move forward. And ultimately that builds up resentment typically in your relationship. And when you get to these hormonal shifts, it brings all that to the front. And that's when people start feeling that pressure test of your marriage at that point in time.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's so cool. I call estrogen the people pleaser hormone,
Dang.
and it drives us for all of those decades that we're
Mhm.
reproducing to take care of other people and attend to other people's needs, sometimes at the expense of our own. So yeah, I feel like when that starts to wobble and then we're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we don't have that hormone pushing us to do that."
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, "Okay, well, why then? What's going on? What's holding me here? What's keeping me here?" And I do think you're right. I've always said, I do believe we do emerge as these new women, these
Mhm.
new humans, and so we have to redefine everything in our life, and our marriage, yeah, is first and foremost because it's such an important relationship. I love that when you speak into lifting the veil and you just see everything differently,
Yeah.
and it definitely is true for all of my friends. So what do we do, Brooke? So we're in midlife, we're feeling different, our marriage feels different. How do we talk about it with our partners? How do we go there? What do we do?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good one because that's where it has to start, right? You have to start having those honest conversations, especially at this point in life when everything's coming to a head, right? And the key to having productive conversations is to take a collaborative approach. It has to be curiosity based. And I think about being curiosity based a lot.
Mhm.
The goal really isn't to win, when you're talking about hormones, it isn't to prove a point of, what I'm going through is tough and hard. Yes, it surely is. But what it is to bring out understanding so that you and your partner can actually get to a point where you're both on the same page. And we don't want to say it's just hormones because that dismisses the very real experience and makes it sound like an excuse. But we also don't want to ignore the fact that, hormones are influencing how we think, how we feel, and how we connect. So I tell couples you want to frame hormones as context, not character. These aren't character flaws. These are symptoms that you're having. They're not character flaws. And they don't cause someone just to suddenly stop losing their spouse. Like that's not what hormones do. But they can magnify, stress, anxiety, and fatigue. And so when couples can name that, it kind of removes the blame from the situation. You're different, you change, you're mean, you're moody, whatever it might be. And so because that language matters, right? And instead of saying you're so irritable, you're so grouchy, or you don't talk to me anymore, with kind of reframing it to, I've been reading how hormones affect mood and patience. And I wonder if that's part of what's happening to us now. And that
Mhm.
really shifts the focus from blame to teamwork in that situation. So it's really the approach and how you go about talking about it. And you have to make sure that it's mutual and honest and kind in that relationship so that you can both get together in kind of understanding what it is that you're trying to talk about when you're discussing all these different types of changes and symptoms that you're experiencing.
So it almost feels like you have to have a good base to even start having the discussions, right?
You really do. You really do. And this is why it's hard for some couples, right? Getting sometimes even to this discussion point is a challenge, especially if you've been emotionally disconnected for a while. especially if you've both held silent resentment towards each other for a while, or you feel like there's some injustices in your relationship, whatever they might be. So, yes, you do have to have the time and the space if you are going to sit down with this. And I always recommend when people are at that point in their relationship and they both are committed to wanting to move forward to it, is you really need to go to credible resources and
Mhm.
credible providers. That might be couples therapy, that might be even separate therapy, just different things. It could be a coach, couples coach, to kind of help you work through those things because ultimately they have the tools to help you communicate more effectively and
Mhm.
kind of help you do it in a safe space. So if you're not there, but you want your relationship to be there and you both agree to it, I definitely recommend people go that route in it. But if you're in a relationship that, you're used to kind of having these kind of touch points and these conversations about different things in life, doesn't have to be hormones, but you feel comfortable and confident in talking to your spouse about something and not getting stonewalled or emotionally shut down or anything that it might be, then these types of conversations, you can bring it to the table that way and say, look what I read, or can you believe the science on this, or whatever it might be. So, yes, I think there's two paths there, Janelle.
Yeah, I even think that can maybe feel like heavier or harder for people, but it's good and it's important, of course. But I think even just what you were saying earlier, just the awareness and the curiosity about how these hormones impact our mood and, of course, sleep and irritability and all of these things. I think just learning and having awareness can feel so validating.
Yes, totally agree with that.
And I feel like it for the partner as well, for
Mhm.
both people as the person experiencing it, it's like, "Oh, okay. Wow, there's something else going on here."
Yeah.
And you can just get curious, and then for the partner to say, "Okay, this isn't just the person." And I also love remembering that, and I think this is, of course, nuanced for everybody, but those perimenopause years are so unique in the, like, turbulence of it, like, I like the word wobbly, in the
Oh,
wobbliness of it,
I
and
like that.
then when we do reach menopause and things eventually recalibrate, if regardless of hormone therapy or not, this is for
Mhm.
everyone, we do recalibrate and sort of find this new balance after, some time, right?
Mhm.
And so do you feel like people who endure and do the work when it's appropriate to the relationship and mutual and all of that, that there's something that you can build towards and like, move into?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head by saying, like, it's this roller coaster, right? It's a lot of ups and downs, and it's unpredictable sometimes. I know you and I had a quick conversation before we started that some days you wake up, you feel, "Okay, I feel pretty good." The next day, you're completely depleted. So, sometimes for our partners, that's hard to manage, right? Because they're used to maybe seeing you be someone that maybe the strong one in the relationship, the capable one, the one that always held the family together and everything. And then all of a sudden they're seeing these changes. And so I think that's hard for them to understand. And like you said, that awareness has to be on both sides and the education has to be on both sides for you to work together as a team towards it. And having that understanding that what your spouse, your wife is going through during this time means the world to her. And also acknowledging that it's real and this is something that is happening to her body. Unfortunately, a lot of people just say, "Oh, it's just in your head," or "It's just this." No, it's not. And taking that seriously means a lot. There's a lot of research out there. I'm getting a little off topic, so I apologize. There's a lot of research out there about the impact of perimenopausal symptoms, and that if a woman has a supportive partner and that believes her symptoms and listens to her and everything while she's going through it, she actually has a reduction in symptoms that she has because number
Mm.
one, she feels emotionally safe in her relationship. So that decreases anxiety and she feels more centered in that her spouse believes her and that her spouse is there to support her. And so usually those people actually do better with perimenopausal symptoms. I'm not going to say 100% better or anything. They just have that support. Then when, a person doesn't, if a woman doesn't have that support and maybe she's not in a relationship that is making her feel emotionally safe, then it can amplify her symptoms because of things like maybe feeling more
Mm.
irritable, having rising anxiety, not feeling trust in her relationship. And so I want to do more research of that in the future, but that is something that I have kind of dug around a little bit and found that information. I thought that's fascinating. So that really just goes to show how much we need our partners during this time so that we can get through this part of our life and feel like having that support, feeling loved, feeling trusted and respected is huge, right? That's the foundation of a relationship. So, but yeah, I'm so sorry. I got a little derailed there for a second.
No, you're just reminding me. It really is wild. It's actually wild that we can even make it through because if you think about it, yes, we get more anxiety. A lot of women, that anxiety kicks in a lot of the times because of the less progesterone. The sleep, oh my gosh, everything is harder when we don't have sleep. But then there's also the things we didn't even talk about. Our energy, so many women are fatigued more. How about libido?
Yeah.
So much changes that feels vulnerable.
It's
Right? I mean,
very vulnerable in this time of
yeah.
life.
Yeah, so it's
Yep.
understandable why so many women are just like, "I'm out."
No, I just can't do it no more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. I read one article. This lady, she just said she just felt like it was just going to be easier just to start over than just
Mm.
to try to continue in her relationship. It just came to that point, and that she just felt that it was just much easier to go out and figure everything out on her own than to stay in her relationship. And you're like, wow, that's very enlightening. When you think about that. And I've heard some women say, they would rather just move to the mountains in a cabin and not talk to anybody. And so you're
Right.
like,
Well, yeah.
exactly. It's amazing how it makes you feel um, as a person in general. And so if you don't have that support, it's so hard. It's so hard just in anything. I think about like even any kind of medical condition, right? Let's just say, for instance, if someone has diabetes or any kind of medical condition, we as women would read all about that and learn how to support our partner and take care of our partner.
Mm.
Most women would, and do everything that we could in that regard. And I think some women don't feel like that is what perimenopause is looked at, is it's not as given as much weight as sometimes, because they're seeing symptoms that are just coming out as you're not as nice anymore, you're a little grumpy, you're a little moody all the time, you don't want to cook dinner no more, all these types of things. And so it's kind of like a role reversal thing when I think about that. I was thinking, like, my husband was diagnosed with some kind of medical condition. You believe I would research that from here to kingdom come and figure out the best plan possible that we needed to move forward with. But this doesn't carry the same weight sometimes. And that's really sad in relationships, but really in general, in society in general too. So when you think about that.
Yeah, and it is so true, and I say we're up leveling, but only if we do the work, but we can't do
Yeah.
the work if we don't have what you said, the validation that this is a life rocking moment. So
Yeah.
let's honor that and get curious. So if someone's listening and they're feeling all those things, frustrated with their relationships, all those changes, feeling vulnerable and scary and maybe
Yeah.
overwhelmed and questioning their relationship. So what can we do? What conversation can we start? What's a beginning point that we can start acting on to see if we can support this marriage or if we do need to leave it? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's multifaceted, right?
Always.
On many levels as you go through there, what can we do? So realistically, I think the first thing is like what you're saying. We need to get on the same page that hormones are part of the picture. And especially you can track your hormones and you can kind of track the symptoms that go along with that. And you can usually see some patterns, right? And you can usually identify kind of what's happening around this time. This is about the time that I feel this way, or I'm actually experiencing this, or whatever it might be. That's data. Data helps so much, right? And gosh, what I'm really learning, and I'm going to derail just quick time. What I'm really learning is that a lot of the younger generations now, like the couples, are actually tracking their women's hormone health together. I found that so fascinating. Even my child in the 20s, he understands his girlfriend's cycle pattern. Is that not like wild? And he's able to talk about that with her and understand what phase she's in and how to support her during that time frame. So there is great things coming from these younger generations. Like they're learning about this and they're wanting to have a partnership. They're not falling into those same patterns that maybe we still see in our generation when some women in their 50s and things. We didn't really talk about that with our husbands. At least I didn't. He kind of knew when it was period time, but other than that, had a clue, no clue.
Yeah, but Brooke, the thing is like we didn't even do it as women. So that's what's so infuriating to me. And I think, thank God it's changing. But we didn't even do that. We didn't even understand our own body. That's what fueled my whole career as I was just like enraged a few decades ago.
Yeah,
I'm like, wait, we don't know anything about ourselves. We're not taught anything. We're just like, deal with it. Show up the same way every day for the year because that's what the
yeah,
world wants us to do. And
yeah.
my good God, we are not the same day in and day out. We are cycling
Oh,
women and each month and then over these big transitions in our lives, we show up as different women. So I love that you're saying that. It really is so wonderful. We didn't know about it, so now we do, and now we're able to talk about it with our partners as well. It's like exponentially amazing and awesome.
yes. I mean, it's kind of, I was fascinated actually about it. And also, it's kind of like how you bring it up in your family. Now, I grew up in a family where, you didn't talk about women's health. It was pretty much taboo. And no, none of the women talked to each other about what they were going through. They were all just put on antidepressants and numb to the world. That's what I grew up in. And I didn't want that for my children. So when my kids started growing up and things and they started their sexual ed classes and everything, I made sure that we used all the correct anatomy. We talked about things. We talked about all the male parts, all the female parts, what they do, because I thought they need to know this. Like, why? This is anatomy. Why are we not talking about this? So there is hope in that part. I think that it's kind of getting out there. Like, this is about our body. There shouldn't be anything shameful about it at all. What's happening. What you're talking about now for us women getting into this phase of life, there's some statistics out there that's almost saying 70% of us were blindsided and completely unaware and
Yeah.
uneducated what was going to happen to us at this point in our life.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know the physical things and the mental things that's going to happen to you, how are you going to know how it's going to change your relationships? You're not prepared for that at all either in that instance. So there is hope about that. So I'm hoping that we're going to see some of these future things are going to change for some of these people. So I'm really finding like those mid millennials and younger are really starting to talk about it and actually sharing things like, "Hey, yeah, I'm tracking my girlfriend's in this phase of her cycle." It's
Yeah.
like, great. Okay, I'm so glad you know that. So, but
It's so
let me
important.
yeah, so it's so important. So let me kind of get back to your question. Like we talked about if couples are at a phase in life where they can do the work, they've gotten to this point in midlife and they have a relationship where they can have honest discussions and be open and willing. There is hope, for these relationships. Not every relationship has to end. I do get that question a lot. A lot of people say the Eschenville lifts and I realize that I'm not happy in my relationship anymore. And there's a point in time where some relationships aren't going to go beyond that. It might be at its end for both people. Both spouses might be like, "Yep, we've got to this point. We've done this. We're good. We're going to go our separate ways." But if that's not the case and people want to work on it, it can be that breaking point, but it can also be a breakthrough. That's what I kind of like people to kind of
Mhm.
understand. So if you are willing to lean in to that emotional relational impact of these hormonal changes, you can come out more connected. And people say, "Well, why? How in the world would you do that?" Well, it's because that this season of life forces a level of honesty many long-term relationships have never faced before. Because, like I said, we're revealing cracks in our relationship. And if we're willing to address those cracks, and we know that it doesn't just impact, the woman, it impacts both of them in the relationship. Things that kind of come out are unmet need. I hear that a lot. Uneven roles in their relationship, emotional drift. That happens a lot, especially when we've been busy raising babies and growing wonderful young adults. And we're going to school, we're getting jobs, we're doing all these things and we're working together. And that emotional drift can happen in relationships. But if you're looking at patterns and things that you've always done and you realize that, hey, this is not going to work for me anymore, and you have this honest conversation with your spouse, what you're hoping is that you're open to learning, but you're also open to unlearning some of the old habits, right? We've just gotten into habits in the relationship that this is just the role that you always do and this is what you've always done. And if that's just not going to work anymore, you've got to come into agreement about what this is. You get to the point where you get to build this new emotional language then you can redefine your intimacy, what that's going to look like going forward. And you can renegotiate how you support each other. And because what worked in our 20s and 30s doesn't always work in our 40s and 50s and beyond. Life changes. And like you said, we're all changing. Even our men are changing. They might say they're not, but our men are changing too. So we have to talk about what is this going to look like going forward? How do we balance these roles? How do we balance how we're going to lift each other up or support each other moving forward? What do you need? What do I need? What haven't we done for each other? It's actually almost exciting to me when you think about it, because you're actually getting to rebuild something that what could move us forward for the next 20, 30 years, whatever it might be. And I've seen couples come out and say, we're actually more connected now than we were in our mid 30s. They're like, we're so much more honest. We say what's on our mind. We don't just tighten our lip and not say something because we don't want to have an argument or get the other person upset or whatever it might be. But we come at it from a place of clarity. We come at it from a place of this is to help us build upon. Not all relationships are at that level of
Mhm.
maturity, but if they
Mhm.
are,
Mhm.
it is a time to build on at that point in time. And it just gets to that point. Okay, how do we want to see this relationship move forward? And
Mhm.
how do we want to make sure that it meets both of our needs at that point in time? So it's super honest. It's super honest and it's hard work, Janelle.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
It's so interesting, Brooke, because it kind of speaks into actually my work and how I love it because I call like this wobble an opportunity.
yeah,
It's a wobble. It can feel pretty awful at sometimes to be in perimenopause, right? Like
yeah,
discombobulating and all the things. It's a massive wobble, but it is an opportunity, like you said, to rebuild. And you can rebuild. It like asks us to do things more in alignment with what's good for us, I think.
right.
And same with food, with sleep, with stress, with how we move our body. Like all of these things, perimenopause invites us to align better with what's right for us. And so we can do the work or not, right? And
Yeah,
what you're saying is if you're in a place in a relationship where you can do the work, then you
yeah,
can use it as an opportunity to really have a deep and rich relationship, which again might not work for everybody,
right.
but
Absolutely. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different goal, in
right.
mind for their
Yeah.
relationship too. So yeah. I know a lot of couples that I've talked to, some have made it, some haven't. And I've actually spoke to a couple of ladies that initiated divorces in their marriage around this time. They were probably like 51, 52, somewhere in that area. And once they got into menopause and a couple years later, they actually told me like they really wish they hadn't. And, that they would love to have had continued that relationship. But, however, things are different, now. And then I've talked to some women that said it's the best thing for them that their marriage ended.
Mhm.
So it's really very individual into what you want. And I'm definitely looking to work with people that, want to continue
Mhm.
what they've got and that they want to be those people that have that 75th wedding anniversary.
And they need you, Brooke, because having the awareness
Yeah,
of the hormones at play and then doing the work, then if you decide to leave, you do it more confidently and you do it
exactly.
more clearly. So then you like have some power in it instead of just not having much control over it. So yeah, your work is so important. I love that this is what you do, that you help people who want to build and use tools and work through these hormone changes in their marriage. What's one thing you wish all couples experiencing this wobble in perimenopause knew? Is there
I
something?
love
I'm sure
that.
there's a million things, but what's one thing?
I love that you have the wobble. It's really good. I like the way you think about that because that's what it is. Like you are wobbling all the way through that. So I really want just people to know these hormone changes, they're real, they're medically documented, they jump into your relationship with sometimes you not knowing. It's not a sign of weakness. That's what I want people to know. A lot of people feel weak sometimes in this aspect of like, gosh, I just yelled at my husband over nothing. It's like I couldn't control it. Now I feel like I'm a bad person or
Mm.
whatever. And so I want people to know it's not you. Like your body's reacting, to something that's going on in that situation. So I talked to a lot of women that feel so guilty. I hate that for them so bad. It makes
Mhm.
it worse on them, right? To feel guilty about it. But I've taught them ways to kind of come back from that situation and how you address that and how you come back from saying how you apologize, how you reassure, and how you move
Mhm.
on.
Mhm.
but but I
Right.
want you to know it's not an excuse either. And it's not proof that your marriage is failing. Like these symptoms of things that's happening and that you feel agitated and irritated and grumpy and sleepy and fatigued and all of that, it doesn't mean that your marriage is going down the tube. It just means that there's a change happening and occurring. And it affects women and men differently. So sometimes your spouse might be feeling some situations like where they're exhausted and things like that. And you're like, you're just lazy. Come on, get up and help me. You're not helping me clean the house. It can go multi ways. But anyway, when couples understand that, they can stop misinterpreting these symptoms. And irritability doesn't automatically mean rejection. Brain fog doesn't mean that your spouse isn't listening or doesn't care. Fatigue doesn't mean that they're just checked out of the relationship. It's biology and it's reshaping our connection. And the couples who do best are the ones that do become hormone informed. I really can see that. My husband and I have developed our own little language, about being things. He'll say a keyword to me, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly right how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
And then we can reset and we could laugh about it, and we can, or he can say, I can see this is really tough on you. What can I do right now to help you feel better? And so that means the world to us in that regard. And what you find is people argue less, they repair faster from things, they feel less alone in this whole process. And that's what we kind of talked about earlier. When you have someone there by your side that believes you and says, this is real with you, it means the world when you get that trust. And here would be one message I'll leave. So midlife hormones don't have to pull you apart. They can actually be the reason that you come together with more honesty than you've ever had before in your relationship. So,
Great. I love that. And can you imagine if we lived in a world where we could all just talk about it like that? It is matter of fact. These are real things that
yeah.
impact our lives. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to do that also with my husband and with my daughters. I'm trying to more say, are you craving more social now? Or are you craving more food now? You're in different, what's hormones up? Like, and if we could just
Yeah.
have our whole world just able to openly talk about that, because
It's
it's
huge.
it's everything. It's everything. It's our whole being.
Yeah. And you think about it like, even like, you're right, it's our whole world and our whole time of our life. But you think about these, 5 to 10 years that we're in this perimenopause transitional phase. And that's a point in our life, usually where usually a lot of women are at the top of their career. Or a lot of people are, doing great things in their world. They're successful in business or whatever. And all of a sudden, this is pressure on you. And if we're not talking about it and socializing that it's normal, it's a normal part of life, then, these women feel isolated
Yes.
and they start thinking that it's them, it's all them, they're the problem. And I think that's when we see a lot more things that are being prescribed now, like antidepressants and things like that. I think it's because we're internalizing all these things and making us think that we have an issue and we have a problem. Because if you start talking about it, and unfortunately, a lot of people either they get really nervous about it or they hold that against you, or they're just like, no, we can't be discussing this situation. It's so taboo.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting ride, but
Interesting
it's
wobble.
it's a wobble wobble. But you can have a hormone for marriage, and you can take it from there.
Brooke, where can people find you if they want to get some
Sure.
tools?
Yes, I'm on Instagram now. So I'm fairly new to social media in a business aspect. So my handle is at marriage in perimenopause because that's where I'm at now. So that is where I am sharing a lot of educational resources and information about how to become a hormone informed marriage and why it's important for you in this phase of your life and your spouse as well. And so that's my socials. And then I'm also working on a course that I'm going to hopefully launch this fall. It'll be called the Hormone for Midlife Marriage.
Awesome. Awesome. I
Yeah.
definitely recommend everyone goes follow Brooke because your content is so important and so helpful. And I will definitely link your course when it's offered. Yeah, I think everyone needs it that's wanting to be curious. So, Brooke, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and everything. Thanks for coming and talking with us.
I greatly appreciate it. It was so much fun, Janelle. And I look forward to maybe we'll have another talk someday soon.
Would love that. Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you. Bye.
That's it for this week. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a comment and a review as that helps it reach more people. You can find me and the Empowered Midlife Method online at mountainrebalance.com. I help midlife women understand their body and feel and age their best. If that sounds like you, please join my community. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover here or an expert you want me to have on, let me know. Thanks for listening. In the meantime, keep playing, and here's to aging our best.